he just didn't try. He wanted to take more money for himself. He didn't properly invest in anything. He has no idea what he's doing. He's like a naive, like 21-year-old who's never run anything. Like, you know what I mean? Very different scenario.
Crushed marketing though.
Crushed the just like flat out lying.
Yeah.
Brazenly lying on Twitter.
Which you could only do at 20, you know? It's like your brain's not, you could just be like, sorry, brain's not fully developed.
Yeah. I'm just a moron. Like biologically, I'm an idiot.
Catch me in like 3-4 years.
Hello everyone, GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. It is Friday, which means it is time for the weekly recap episode. And joining me today to break down all of the good stuff that's been happening in Web3, NFTs, the metaverse, etc., is Ronald Deloise. Folks may know him on social media, Discord as Mr. Rollo, and he is the head of Web3 for Rolling Loud, the hip hop music festival. Is hip hop right?
Yeah, largest hip hop music festival in the world.
You can tell how like just fundamentally uncool I am that I had to double check that. I get nervous that I'm gonna like say the wrong thing around like cool cultural things. So anyway.
Oh, don't worry. I've become like the stupidest person in crypto and now the least cool person in hip hop. So I'm really like
every room you're in, you feel inadequate.
So I'm either the coolest or the dumbest. And so it's like I like gyrate between these two.
Yeah, that's the positive spin on it. I love it. Well, we're of course going to dive into what we always do on this show. Overall, kind of talk about the markets. Elon is buying Twitter again, I suppose. We got Kim Kardashian news. VeeFriends came out with some big news. A bit of an Azurbala art fiasco when it came to Tally Labs and the Jenkins project, Moonbirds DAO. I mean, lots of good stuff this week. So we'll get into all that. But first, I do have to remind you, please, if you are watching this on YouTube, subscribe to this channel. We are now only publishing Overpriced JPEGs podcast episodes on the Overpriced JPEGs YouTube channel. You can no longer get these on the Bankless channel. So it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe. If you were listening to this on a podcast app, please rate and review the pod. Again, it means the world to me. Thank you so much. And before we dive into all this good stuff, we got to hear a word from our lovely, lovely sponsors.
When it comes to NFTs, convenience often wins over security, despite scams being everywhere. Brands and artists have no other choice by complying with big marketplace terms and weak security because no good alternative exists, which is what prompted Ledger to fix the problems of NFTs themselves and launch Ledger Market. The Ledger Market provides an end-to-end secure NFT experience for brands, artists, and users, enabling true ownership and control over NFT assets, from minting to storing. Ledger Market secures NFT projects via Ledger Enterprise, keeping you protected from phishing attacks and scams. And the market directs users to Ledger Live, where they can transact with a contract directly, giving clear signing details instead of blind signing and praying. Don't trust, verify with clear signing from Ledger Market. Stay up to date on the latest drops and marketplace updates by following Ledger on Twitter and joining the Ledger Open Discord, which is linked in the show notes below. BUENO is the NFT toolkit you need to launch your digital collectible on the blockchain without coding. Every step of the NFT creation process, from generation to mint, all taken care of by the BUENO NFT toolkit. With BUENO, you can load up your properties, reorder the layers, tinker with rarity, everything you need to make the perfect NFT project. BUENO even takes care of advanced minting logic like allow lists, token balances, surveys, and email collection to make sure that you are hooked into your own community. There are even Discord role integrations to make sure that your Discord gets buzzing. BUENO is full of the powerful tools you need to build the most expressive NFT project possible. So go to bueno.art and start building your own little microverse inside of the metaverse today.
All right, let's just start generally, Ronald. How are you feeling on the market this week? What have you been tracking? Bullish, bearish? Are we nearing the bottom of crypto winter? What do you think?
Oh, loaded statement. We've been shopping around, so I think the NFT market's responding well to that. It seems, I mean, it's been said a million times, but when ETH price goes down, NFTs go down. And then when ETH price goes up, NFTs also go down. So yeah. Shopping is ideal.
NFTs like stable ETH. They don't like volatile ETH.
No.
That's the key.
So I think you're starting to see things, at least sentiment wise, change a little bit, which is good. Where we're actually at, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen the worst of it in terms of ETH pricing over the next, say, 6-month window. Regardless, I still think here's a great place to buy long term. Anywhere here is good long term, whether it's high triple digits or even 2,000. Shit, even 4K I think was a good place long term. So I'm super bullish long term on ETH. In the short term, maybe still a little bearish.
Yeah, I think I was just having this conversation with Ben Mesrick, whose podcast episode will air after this. So I'll say it here first, which is I think there's an important distinction between, call it sentiment narrative around NFTs and the tech, and price. I think price is so affected by macro right now, and we just don't know what's going to happen with Russia, Ukraine. Like nukes are sort of on the table in a way that's just always going to put a shadow over the market. You have a lot of macro forces that are keeping everything down and might push things even further down. But I do feel like we are breaking into an era where there's some announcements coming out of projects. There's some building happening again. I mean, hell, there's some green on the screen, like kind of a lot of green, looking at some of like the top projects here. Gods Unchained has continued to really just stay at the top of the charts with with their project. And like Art Blocks is doing well. Apes are doing well. Punks are doing all right. Like, there's a little bit of life back in the market in a way that doesn't mean there's going to be new millionaires minted every day, like we were having in the bull run. But that does feel like people are like breaking out of just their like super doom and gloom, like stagnation.
Yeah, it's interesting to like talk about it because it's like the crypto market and the NFT market are almost completely divorced in a way. Like you can look at even when like Terra depegged, and at the same time, you had the Azuki drama, and NFT Twitter was all about Azuki when it's like, in reality, like compared to Terra situation is not even a blip on the radar. And it's very interesting that the NFT market is so cultural and it's so sentiment driven, whereas crypto market now has matured a lot, you do start to get more into fundamentals and looking at macro markets. And like no one in an NFT world is talking about rate hikes. I mean, some are because they're
a little bit,
they stand on the, like some of your more, I don't want to say intelligent, because not to say if you don't pay attention to the macro side, you're not intelligent, but a lot of NFT people don't even think about those things. They're so fully focused on just the cultural aspect of it.
Well, honestly, I noticed it with the merge where DeFi kind of deep crypto world was like super focused on the merge for months before NFT folks started talking about it. And then right at the end, I think NFT Twitter, was getting excited about the merge. But, being at Bankless and sort of straddling DeFi world a little bit more, I was like, felt like I was sort of tracking it way earlier than I saw it really being talked about in any sort of like prominent way on NFT Twitter. There's still a long way to go, I feel like, for any of these markets to be trading on fundamentals. Like just the fact that you have the price of ETH drop as precipitously did after the merge goes through successfully, and you have these like incredibly more favorable supply demand economics happening with it and all the rest of it. But I think there was a thread this week. It was Yatsu, I believe, of Animoca who tweeted this out, where Bloomberg had some headline this week like NFTs are dead was, I think, literally the headline, and it was based on the fact that by some measures you can look at, NFT sales are down 97% off their highs. And actually Trevor Noah at the Daily Show did a whole thing joking about that and making fun of like, oh, who could have thought that like ape monkey pictures like wouldn't be worth the same. Of course, the irony with that is that like Bored Apes floor price has held up pretty well. Like you're still hanging out in the 80 ETH range. Like, so, and so that was for some of the points that Yatsu was making too. Like, okay, yeah, you have volume that is down, but you also have like a Bored Ape floor price that's stayed stronger than I would have thought. If you were to tell me that like we were going to have the massive crash that I think many of us figured was probably coming at some point, and Bored Apes were going to stay, at like 100K a piece, I would have been like, that's bullish as hell. Super. I would not have thought that. Yat's point also is that you don't actually have all the activity being captured. Like you have more more platforms that are where trading volume is happening. Besides just OpenSea, you obviously have your LixRares, your X2, Y2, your pseudo swaps, but you also like Decentraland. You have just other marketplaces. You've got Immutable X has marketplaces where there's a lot of volume in kind of the top of the charts.
And just like OTC and like there's way more of that happening.
And he's saying Sandbox, like there's stuff happening within Sandbox that's not being tracked. Now, Animoca Brands, owns or is one of the lead investors, whatever, on Sandbox. Like it's a little bit pumping his own bag. The Sandbox is like exploding. He's like, we've had like an uptick in Sandbox users. I'm like, yeah, great, from like 200 people a day to like 500 people a day. I mean, exactly. We've doubled and it's still under 1,000 people using this damn platform. So, taking it with a grain of salt. But I think there's a broader picture there that he's right about, which is that there's just these mainstream narratives are really missing the activity that's happening underneath. And the investment piece, which I think is amazing, is like people are still able to raise in crypto, like for all of the kind of drying up of activity in VC worlds kind of broadly, like I know a number of folks who have raised during this bear. I'm looking at maybe raising and we have interest and like, it's and somebody I think posted an image, this was a while back, of like all the dry powder, like all the money that's sitting in VC funds that has not been invested yet. Like there's still a lot that can be done on that side. So I think it's better obviously than the mainstream things.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that dry powder is getting very itchy. It's like that dry powder does not want to be the last one back in.
Yeah, and totally. And if you are a VC where the investments you're making are long term, like you're less worried about how brutal is the next 12 months going to be, how brutal is the next 18 months going to be. Like you're starting to hit the zone where it's like, all right, clearly there are some deals happening right now if you're taking a 7 to 10 year time horizon kind of a view, which is what a VC is going to do, if not longer. So I agree with you. I think there's more money like that's ready to be kind of ripped in. All right, Elon is buying Twitter. We don't have to harp on this. It's not directly crypto. Lots of hot takes out there about it. I think that like my take is like, yeah, of course. Like he wasn't going to win this lawsuit. He's not going to like pay some settlement and just not end up with Twitter. The Twitter board's not going to accept some settlement because they know they have him by the balls. And like, obviously he's going to have to pay 54. So, I guess this was sort of felt like the inevitable outcome at a certain point.
Yeah, it seems like it's still a little in flux though, from what I was reading a little, like they still have the 17th, that court date is still in place. They haven't, right? I might be wrong on this. I read something this morning and I know that they've thrown in a little bit of like Elon's team being like, if we don't get the funding right, like on the bank side, like that could fall through. And then he would only have to pay like $1 billion, like as his penalty.
Well, that was definitely their original strategy. Elon was trying to get the court date pushed back like consistently, and he was giving all these reasons. Oh, we need to put more of our case together. And the judge kept shutting that down. Like he wanted the court case. He didn't want the court to be, or the case to be in. It was originally going to be in September. He was trying to get it pushed to like February of next year, March of next year, at which point, the funders were no longer on the hook, or, there was something with he wouldn't be able to get the funding at that point, which would be a way to get himself out of the deal. So that had always been something strategically. It seemed like an angle they were trying to work, and the judge was pretty flatly like taking it.
What were the text leaks?
So
I missed. I tried to get into it, and I was like, I can't even fucking find these texts. Like, what is this?
Yeah, his text had been subpoenaed or whatever the right phrase was, and so you had a ton of text, mostly benign, frankly, but it got headlines because it was a lot of celebrity folks. It was like Gayle King trying to get an interview with him, and who's another billionaire who's literally like casually over text being like. Like basically saying he'd give him $1 billion to help him fund for the Twitter thing, and like that's of course just like how the other side lives, the other half, not other half, the other 0.0001% live.
Half would have been generous.
Like, was it Larry Fink or somebody? It was like somebody like who just is literally committing $1 billion to this dude via a text message in a way that's almost like, yeah, like I'm kind of busy with something else, but yeah, sure, like I can commit $1 billion.
And who doesn't really want to like be seen in that light either, especially
probably
like socially, like kind of this like eat the rich kind of environment, like just like casually throwing out $1 billion.
It looks so out of touch. Totally. And then there was stuff, I don't know if you know Jason Calacanis, who he's one of the co-hosts on the All In pod and, venture capitalist guy, and kind of getting like read the riot act by Elon, who's one of his friends. But Jason had been kind of pitching to some of his, LPs, or I don't know who it was exactly, but folks basically saying he'd get them access to the Twitter deal. And this had come out at one point. And it made Elon look really bad. And so there's a text from Elon to Jason being like, dude, I think he literally said like, stop like telling randos they can get in on the deals. And the randos are like pretty
not
legit
rando.
investors, like millionaires, but like, again, Elon is at such a different echelon that to him, they're like randos. And Jason kind of responds and is like, hey, they're not randos, but he's like, it makes me look desperate. It makes it look bad. Like, what are you doing? Stop, and there was a little bit of like sycophanticness going on with Jason being like, oh, like, I'll fall on the sword for you, like I'll do anything, like whatever you need, whatever. So none of the texts,
we're all
at
human.
least from what I read, were all that damning. I think there's thoughts that Elon had deleted some texts and that in like a later, like if it were to go to a trial and he had to be on the stand or a deposition or something, like other stuff would come out that he probably doesn't want to have to talk about. So that's part of this thinking too, is like Elon doesn't want to go through like, a deposition or having to sit on a stand and be asked about like your tweets on Russia and like, your this about Tesla or just like things that might come out that might, he probably just doesn't want to have to deal with. It's just gonna be a bad press cycle and he's still gonna lose.
I was gonna say his stock is also so like sensitive to public sentiment.
Especially with him, like it's just like it's so much about Elon.
Yeah.
Totally.
So
I
just
think
in a
for
big
all
picture,
those
are
reasons.
you, let's say it goes through, Elon on Twitter, bullish or bearish on Twitter?
I'm bullish. Well, look, I mean, I think that, this is clearly Twitter is not worth $54, or presumably Elon would not be trying so hard to get out of this deal. Like, the market collapsed basically right after he made that offer. And so Twitter as it currently stands is probably worth a lot less. So who knows like how long it'll take for its true value to actually be more than like $54 a share. And, right now the stock's basically close to that because of course it is, because people are now thinking this deal's going to go through and they want to capture that spread between the $52 it's trading at and the $54 he's going to buy it for. So I don't know, this isn't to say I think that the stock will go up. I'm relatively persuaded because a number of smart people that I like who are like on radically different ends of like the political spectrum, et cetera, all seem to share the view that Twitter is like just totally mismanaged. You've had Jack Dorsey be like a part-time CEO because he was much more interested in Square or Block or whatever his other company
Web
is.
6 or what web was he going to?
Yeah, Web 5.
Web 5.
Yeah,
Web 5.
exactly.
Sorry, I was getting ahead of Jack even.
Yeah, you're way ahead of us. You have a board that seems like it's been really acquiescent to anything that, again, their part-time CEO sort of wanted. Obviously, they have Prague now, but anyway, so it feels like it does feel like it's a cesspool. Like we all seem to agree that like the experience of Twitter is just like way worse than it could or should be.
The bot issue is really interesting because it seems like smart people make it seem like it could be very easily resolved, but they don't resolve it. Like, is there more to that?
I'll give you a take on this. This is Scott Galloway's big thing. So Twitter is an ad-sponsored platform, which means they are reliant on it looking like they have more users. They benefit from it looking like they have more users than they actually have, because then they can tell advertisers, we've got 1 billion people on the platform, and that sounds good to an advertiser. So that's part of this problem. It's like they don't actually want to clean up the bot issue because it's going to get rid of what, like 50% of their freaking like audience or whatever it is, right? However many bots there are on Twitter, it's going to massively reduce their numbers, which will in theory hurt their ad revenue. So Scott Galloway's whole thing is like, you need to move Twitter to a subscription model, which I think Elon's also actually talked about. Move it to a subscription model because everyone from Kim Kardashian to VCs to frankly people like me at this point who have a following on Twitter will pay $3 a month or whatever it is to be able to stay there and keep talking to our audience. It probably, if not entirely fixes, like severely reduces your bot problem, because these bots aren't paying. You're not running a bot farm. You're not paying for all of your bots on there. Like, there's maybe if you're Russia, there's certain incentive, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But like, it's going to reduce that problem. But the biggest thing is it also means that you can now actively go and try and clean up the bot problem, because you're not reliant on advertiser revenue that's tied to your numbers anymore. You're getting subscriber revenue from real people, and you can now go and clear out the bots without feeling like you're going to cannibalize your revenue model.
Or maybe go the Bology route and just build something new.
Yeah, or make it a damn protocol as opposed to like a platform.
Are you aware of Farcaster?
No.
Oh, you got to check that out.
Tell me more.
I'm too stupid to fully understand it, but it's like you need an Ethereum wallet address that is your login. Like you have a seed phrase that is your login. It's like built upon Ethereum. It's by a guy DNR, Dan Romero. It's in its fledgling states, but it's fun. If you feel stupid on Twitter, Farcaster's like a whole nother level. But
a whole new
you have
beast.
like Chris Dixon on there. Like there's some major players over there for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, a guy at Live Nation, Anubhav, who's brilliant, put me onto it. So I'm on there. Follow me on Podcaster.
All right, I'll check it out.
You have to DM him to get an invite. But definitely check it out. They're still they're still building functionality, but there's some cool stuff in it that Twitter doesn't have. And obviously there's a lot on there that Twitter does have that they don't have. But definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is if we can figure out a way to make it decentralized, or, again, people give the email comparison, again, not smart enough to talk at length about this, or just haven't researched it enough. But I can have a Gmail address, you can have an AOL account, and we can still email each other and nobody can stop that. There's no centralized authority that can shut that down. And, that's where you kind of want to end up, is you have a public square where people can, kind of be posting, and there's not really a central authority that can shut people up. I don't know. It's tricky. I mean, that gets you into
is what is aiming for. This is what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I'll have to check it out. All right. More on Twitter than I thought we would do, but that was fun. Kim Kardashian gets hit with a 1 point something million SEC fine for promoting. Also just hilarious. You have all this money. Why are you promoting Ethereum Max and EMAX anyway?
Maybe that's how you get that much money though.
Yeah, yes, but she got paid $250,000, which obviously nothing to sneeze at, but you're a billionaire. Why even risk pumping something that's clearly kind of dumb and that you clearly probably don't know enough about for $250,000 when you're a billionaire with a brand to protect? It seems like a weird move just from the jump to me.
Yeah, I wonder who was kind of telling her that this was a good move. It's she, you know what I'm saying? She probably has so much coming in, there's very little bandwidth. She was good idea. Okay. I'm sure she relies on people.
Yeah.
And there's so much misinformation in the space that it's very easy to get tricked. I could see people come in and get tricked. I get it. I've been in it since, I don't know, 2017. So I'm a little more evolved in knowing what's what, but just the $250K for $1 billion, but I mean, I think the bigger thing, which we're obviously going to get to, is so this is a security?
Yeah. So this is so important. And I'll say, I think you're right. I think it's a good point. People forget just how busy people are. Kim Kardashian is a multi-billion-dollar business. She is just not having time to deeply approve every ad that's going out on her behalf, every post that's going out on her behalf. She's, launching a private equity fund. That woman is so crazy busy, and I know there's a lot of ways to hate on and shit on the Kardashians, but you cannot take their work ethic away from them. Holy hell, it's that devil works hard, Kris Jenner works harder. Yeah, it's crazy, unbelievable.
As much salt as they get, their accomplishments are undeniable, and you said, 100%. People vastly underestimate how busy she is. They see the reality show, and they're oh, she's not that, whatever it may be. She is busier than 99, back to that crazy small percentile of people. That's how busy she is.
Totally. 100%. Absolutely. Okay. The security thing, this has been missing. People aren't, when everyone's reporting on this is missing. So she put, let me be clear. When you read the headlines, in my opinion, it comes across she didn't at all reveal that this was an ad, which is not true. In her post, she put #ad. So she's not getting in trouble for not having revealed it was an ad in the typical way, the Fire Festival people got in trouble, right? Because they didn't say they were. What she's getting in trouble for is that they're saying this is a security. And if you're advertising for a security, you don't have to just put #ad. You have to disclose how much you're getting paid. There's all of these additional disclosure requirements if you're repping a security essentially.
Where do you even put that? In your hashtag, 250K at
Totally. It's obviously totally bizarre. And clearly why her team missed it is A, it would be weird. And B, they're not thinking about this as a security because this hasn't been resolved. This question of how do we determine in crypto what a security is? And I've said this a bunch on the show. I understand the need and the desire for regulation. There has been a complete abdication of the responsibility to actually set forth clear rules on the part of the SEC, on the part of the CTFC, and that seems to be the problem right now. Is just
and it's they want to let the courts figure it out. They're just almost waiting
they want
for
to leave
court
themselves
cases. Completely.
And leave themselves the bandwidth to do whatever they want.
But at the same time,
which leaves it feeling very arbitrary.
Yeah, but at the same time, want to be this is a security. It's if you want to make it a security, make it a fucking security. Let us know what's happening.
Then write the rules. 100%. Yeah, really frustrating. And again, I think this is actually hilarious. There was some account, some like verified account, LBRY, tweeted under Gary Gensler. So Gary Gensler tweeted out that they, were going after Kim Kardashian. Clearly, they're trying to make an example of her, whatever. And LBRY, some verified company on Twitter, responds with a poll and says, who would you trust more to run the SEC, Kim Kardashian or Gary Gensler?
Is it a bunch of crypto people polling? Like,
I'm sure. But the results were that it was like 71% of people voted for Kim Kardashian to run the SEC over Gary Gensler. Obviously, this means absolutely nothing. It's just a hilarious troll tweet that I get a real kick out of.
Twitter, I mean, crypto people would love like zero oversight. They're like, Kim Kardashian probably wouldn't do anything, so she would be perfect.
Yeah. No, I think it's based on the sentiment like Kim Kardashian does, like, I think is like a more diligent, I don't know, whatever. Gary Gensler is annoying, right? Because he's posturing so hard about how he wants to regulate it, and then he's not defining any rules for how that regulation is going to be enacted. And it's like talking out of both sides of your mouth is not really what
maybe
it is,
a little bit of
like,
concern over like his legacy to make the rules on this. Yeah. Like, he must understand the implications.
He's totally doing it to score points
with the
liberals, the majority of people who hate crypto people,
which is a whole nother. We'll get to that later. But yeah, that's an interesting left versus right thing within the whole spectrum of crypto, and that's being politicized. Whereas a lot of the ideals of the left are represented in crypto, as is the right. It really should represent a bipartisan thing, but here we are.
Well, score points with people, honestly, who follow the SEC, right? Like, I feel like, well, I guess you have like anti-government Republicans who follow the SEC, but it's like, it's liberals who are pro-government, which I am, right? But I think that there's obvious like ways to criticize them. Like, those are the people who I feel like are like, tracking what a government is doing, because they're the ones who like the idea of government. I don't know. I'm probably off on this take because Republicans track it to be like, screw big government. Okay, let's move on because I really want to get to Rolling Loud stuff. VeeFriends launched their toy partnership with Macy's and Toys R Us. This is exciting. As a VeeFriends holder, I guess I should say disclosure, I have 2 VeeFriends, and some book and a bunch of Series 2 VeeFriends as well. I think it's awesome. Apparently he had a quote here. I actually don't know where this was grabbed from, but he said, if you asked me a year ago, I would say VeeFriends is an NFT company. Today, I think of VeeFriends as a transmedia or multimedia company where we're doing stories in all forms and fashions, any form or medium in which we can bring to life, if you will, the characters and traits that we're hoping to inspire in others. He's kind of always been saying that. Like, I get he was more NFT front and center when he was first launching it, but he's always made the point that like Harry Potter started as a book, Transformers started as a toy, Pokemon started as a card game, and he's trying to build a brand that's starting as an NFT. And so, this doesn't feel like any sort of divergence from what I, as a holder, I've always seen the plan as being. But I think it was a well-executed partnership, and it's a cool announcement. And
I mean,
all positive
and
vibes.
It's the relaunch of Toys R Us, which is like, I mean, I have young kids. I would absolutely bring my kids to Toys R Us. That was Christmas, even if it was July. Like, nothing in my life I can even compare to bring me that kind of joy. That's just like aisles and aisles and unbelievable.
Totally. When I would get a shot, I hated getting shots, obviously, as all kids do. And like, if I like behaved and like went along and cooperated when I had to go get a shot, I would get to go to Toys R Us after. And it was like, all right, I was fine. I'll cooperate.
The school I went, just like quick little story about Toys R Us. When I was younger, I had to like do some testing to get into this school. And I was little, and you had to go into a room by yourself and do all these little like tasks. And I was crying and starting. My mom's like, "I'll take you to Toys R Us after," and done. Yeah. Like, I would have been in that room for an hour.
There you go.
Like,
yeah, that's the thing. So, I think it's awesome. I think I've been always very bullish, Gary. I think he uniquely sees this space, uniquely understands the opportunity. Just is, just kind of clairvoyant in his ability to just understand and see where consumer trends are heading, and has always, kind of been that way. So
I think Gary deeply understands culture, and he is seeing VeeFriends now as a way to build culture at the deepest root level with children. Yeah. So I don't want to use brainwash, but like It's like child propaganda in a way. And it's super positive and super beneficial. Like it's such an altruistic mission. I love it. I think Gary's a visionary. I'm like you said, super bullish on Gary, super bullish on VeeFriends, not a holder.
Yep.
But him and Tarek did a podcast together and they get along so well because there's such a deep commitment to culture. Whether it's what Gary's doing or what Rolling Loud is doing with hip hop.
Totally. Yeah, he went on Bankless recently too to talk about this announcement and was saying, he really sees himself as a storyteller and this is just like an amazing way to get to tell stories and impact, to your point, like, instill positive values in kids and all the rest of it. The Azurbala art fiasco. Have you been tracking this?
Yeah, I saw it.
It was bad. So the quick overview here, right? You have Tally Labs, which is the company behind Jenkins the Valet, who up to this point, I feel like have really been held up as a model for, storytelling NFTs is sort of like a joke / a meta right now. But they were early really doing that. They created this character out of this Bored Ape and then have built this whole story world around that character and, have executed really well. Azurbala is the world in which their story is set. If you go to the Azurbala website, I don't know if you've been to it before, it's fantastic in my opinion. It's like they have a whole map, it's like one of those like story world maps you'd find in the beginning of your fantasy book and you can click, they've got music, it's jungly, it's like, it's immersive. You click on a place in the map and you can go and kind of look around and beautiful art, immersive, like super well executed. So they've launched they're going to be launching these PFPs, which if you have the Bored and Dangerous book, you can burn for one of their PFPs. And they revealed whatever the art for these PFPs. And it wasn't received as planned.
It's a little bit of a miss. The price tanked,
I can't show the artwork. I wish I could share my screen right now, but it'll screw up the recording the way. But yeah, weird. Do you want to try and describe this art?
It's kind of like what I would imagine, like all the crypto conspiracy theorists that think there's like lizard people, like this is what the lizard people would look like. But to get to it, like I'm so bullish on Jank, like the storytelling, like getting back to culture. Culture is about storytelling. That none of that is lost. I think the community is still super in support of it. You might have lost some of the speculation aspect, but they have money. They're going to go back. They're going to fix the art. It's going to be fine.
They're going to be fine. I totally agree. The hilarious thing is like you have these creatures that maybe themselves look cool or fit the vibe, but then you have them in like a chef's hat or like a nerdy Christmas sweater. And you're like, this like humanoid creature that lives in the jungle in this like weird other world is wearing a Christmas sweater. Like what? And even the textures didn't match, whatever. So
that's kind of the lizard people vibe. Like they infiltrated society.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
They somehow got all these things in Azurbala.
Totally bizarre. But I also like understand, and this is sort of what you were saying with the Kim Kardashian thing. Like I think it is important, if you've worked in big organizations, scrappy organizations, like you do know how you can get so in your world that you do kind of lose perspective. Because I think the big question is like, how the F did this get through? Like how did they let this stand? And they wrote a whole blog post about it and I was really empathetic to it, which is they were like, it seems like this wasn't for lack of trying. It was like we had all these sets of ideas that we thought were going to be cool at the outset. We've spent 6 months building it. We've been so in it. We kind of lost the ability to see the forest for the trees. It's improved so much. Like I think they were trying to do some like interesting things with textures that ended up looking terrible. But like my sense is that they looked even worse in the beginning. So they had improved this. It sounds like, according to them, so much over 6 months that they sort of like by the end thought it was like cool. I actually am empathetic to that. Like you get in this bubble, you kind of lose perspective. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because they're clearly not rug pullers. They're clearly not trying to screw anybody over. They're clearly going to fix it. To your point, they're a great project. They're going to be fine. But yeah, wow. What a whiff.
I'm curious though, what's worse, Kevin or this?
Definitely Kevin.
Kevin at 3 ETH.
There is nothing
unbelievable
that will ever top Pixelmon. Like comparing the hype and what was promised to what was delivered is I mean, nothing will ever top it.
I want a digital frame with Kevin in it so bad. Because
Yeah.
they're like Gen 1, so I don't think Kevin like exists anymore, right? Like
Yeah.
the OG.
I don't think so. What does Kevin sell for now? I mean, he got up there. He was going for 6, 7 ETH, wasn't he? Like, was it ever more
Even
than
then,
that?
when
I think it was
the
like 6 or
project
7.
like tanked, he was still like higher than everyone else because he had like cultural significance. I mean,
Totally.
I love Kevin.
Totally. Talk about failing upward is like, continuing royalties on because Kevin has become a cultural icon after you absolutely tank your project. Totally different scenarios. Tally Labs is not at all whatever the Pixelmon guy's name was, who is clearly a complete scammer. And
hey, no, I think Pixelmon is coming back.
he's a scammer though. Like, do you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
is he? I mean, yeah.
For sure. I mean, I don't know. From my perspective, I mean, look, we all have our own
I mean, with
lines on, like,
70
what a
million, you
scam
can
is.
build anything.
Yeah,
after
I mean,
that.
like, I'm like, don't get out of my face. Like, I honestly can understand, and it might be hard for other people to believe. Like, I can honestly understand being in an organization like Tally Labs where you've got so much going on. You've got a team that's working on this. You have this concept of like some weird texture thing. It looks terrible in the beginning. You improve it a bunch. So you've lost perspective on the fact that like just from a first glimpse, it looks god awful, and you put it out. That is clearly not what happened with Pixelmon. Like, there's no, you know what I mean? Like, he just didn't try. He wanted to take more money for himself. He didn't properly invest in anything. He has no idea what he's doing. He's like a naive, like 21-year-old who's never run anything. Like, you know what I mean? Very different scenario.
Crushed marketing though.
Yeah, crushed the just like flat out lying.
Yeah.
Brazenly lying on Twitter. Crushed.
Which
that.
you could only do at 20, it's like your brain's not, you could just be like, sorry, brain's not fully developed.
Yeah. I'm just a moron. Yeah. Like, biologically, I'm an idiot.
Catch me in like 3-4 years.
I might be better. Yeah, totally. I do think the other lesson here, which they were upfront about, is like, this is why you build alongside a community, right? Like, this is why you kind of like, as much as you can, take them on a journey. I also understand being in an organization and already having so many stakeholders you're kind of thinking about that it's hard to think of like posting publicly at every step. But like, this would have been avoided had from the outset they'd had this like policy of like, let's share with the community and get feedback early, as opposed to like going through 6 months of a development process and then putting out something that like didn't jive at all with what their community wanted.
Yeah, maybe they couldn't even have released that first step though.
Well, they seem to cop to the fact that they like should have been building alongside the community more.
Yeah,
and that was like a misstep, was like that they. But yeah, exactly.
That would have been
like,
dead right away then.
So
They would have
bad.
saved a lot of time.
No, you're right. It is. That is the other problem, is when you're like, it's like you release something that's god awful because it's 6 months before it's ready, and everyone's like, this is god awful, and you're like, yeah, but like that's because it's not done. But
and the market's
anyway,
so speculative, it's like tough to build alongside them sometimes.
I totally agree with that. Okay. Last thing before we maybe just go over to Rolling Loud. I know it's something you wanted to talk about. I actually had this team on the pod last week, but I think we want to maybe just go over it. The Truth Labs.
Yeah, I do.
Illuminati DAO CryptoFace launch. Those who didn't listen to the podcast last week, maybe you should just go back and listen to the podcast so I don't have to recap this shit. No, I'm just kidding. Truth Labs, they're behind Goblin Town. They're behind the Illuminati NFT. Somebody in their community uncovered like an avatar project on Ethereum that predates CryptoPunks. It was some Russian hacker who like created this avatar builder at a hackathon, and they revived it. The original NFTs were non-transferable, so that's why they didn't have any activity on them. This one, they obviously they replicated the original code minus the non-transferability piece. Illuminati DAO members and Goblin Town holders, or some select Goblin Town holders, were able to mint for free, and then a couple public mints for free, I think. Yeah, what do you think?
The integration, I think the coolest thing is the integration thing that they built on top, where half of the mint royalties go to the minter. Like the minter becomes the creator, and then the other half is going back into the DAO. So I think this, at first I was like, that mechanic doesn't even, like, what would that even be good for? But I think it's really interesting for like DAO-led mints, because you're incentivizing your DAO members to mint the project because they're going to get all the future royalties on it. So you're getting revenue there, and then you're still getting royalties coming back in on half of the trades coming. I think it's a really, really interesting mechanic for DAOs. It doesn't really work for, obviously, like, let's say a Rolling Loud or a VFriends, or I mean, any, like, I don't want to call them as centralized, but in a way like centralized projects, because it just doesn't, that mechanic doesn't make sense. But DAO-led projects, I think it's very, very interesting.
And it could make sense. I could push on like like Tyler Hobbs's mint also did this QQL where, you know, if you mint one of those art pieces, you get royalties back because again, it's the same model, which is that like you are a co-creator in it in a way that I think they're hoping means they can like bypass securities laws because they're saying like this royalty is payment for the fact that you had a hand in building what this output is. And so you deserve some royalties. So I could see a world where, you know, like Hollywood studio projects that are trying to go the NFT route who want to be able to crowdfund for a project, but also pay their holders back. You know, like
or maybe
kind
some
of
like AI
a centralized
art
project.
mechanics, like where you're providing
the
prompt.
QQL,
or,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's more generative.
Tyler
Even like going kind of like the Dolly route. Like if some minting mechanic comes out of that, or
totally. I think it's a cool way to again try and get around securities laws, which is not. I don't know that it's sort of what they're trying to do, but
bearish on actual CryptoFaces
like
though. I don't think
really.
Yeah, I think the way they wasn't like a hack. They like worked around and then it kind of like diminished the rest of the collection because they were able to do something other people weren't allowed to do. And no, those are still part of the live collection. And it's not really like you said, like the other ones were non-transferable. This is just kind of like like to try and play like the historical angle, I think is a tough angle to play. Yeah. But super bullish on truth. They do cool stuff. Like there's just no doubt about it.
Totally.
But
they play. Yeah.
I love it.
I did mint a CryptoFace. Shout out Nathan, who I think, let me confirm. I think is the one who actually found the original. Yes. Nathan found the original contract. Like he was the one who brought it to the DAO that like, hey, we should do this. So he actually does get like a 0.05% or 0.5% or whatever it is of royalties moving forward. That was sort of his agreement with the team or whatever. So, but anyway, so he was really sweet and like sent me one of his Illuminati NFTs so that I could mint a CryptoFace.
Oh,
and
that's
then I
cool.
sent him the Illuminati NFT back. So I did mint a CryptoFace. I was like going to try and be like cool with it and like have it green hair. Like there was a lot of high variety of like diversity in some ways of like what you could customize more than I was kind of expecting. And so I was going to make it all cool. And then I just got lazy and was like, fuck it. And just kind of made it look like me. So, so I have a CryptoFace that is like a brunette with blue eyes and a woman. So
I have a friend, pregnant Chad.eth, who like really went in on minting his crypto and he sold it. I think he's like the top sales of the collection. So apparently he's an artist now and he crushed it. Actually sold his faces.
So see, I was going to try and do something like that. And then I got, you know, like 10 minutes in and was like, you know what? I'm probably not going to pull it off anyway. So like,
that's me in video games.
I got work to do. I'm just gonna. My
character customization always starts really strong, and by the time I'm like to their eyebrows, I'm like, I'm fucking done. Like I'm not designing eyebrows.
I'm not dealing with this.
COINSHIFT is a leading treasury management and infrastructure platform for DAOs and crypto businesses that need to manage their treasury operations. Every crypto org needs to manage its treasury, and COINSHIFT offers a simple, flexible, and efficient multi-chain treasury management platform built on top of the highly secure Gnosis Safe. With COINSHIFT, your organization can go from primitive single-chain treasury management to expressive, flexible, and multi-chain treasury features, such as global user management, global contacts, proposal management, and many other features that can be shared across an entire organization, allowing users to save time and reduce operational burdens and gas costs. COINSHIFT even has data tools like account reporting across the 7 chains on which it operates. Used by industry powerhouses such as Uniswap Grants, Balancer, Consensus, and Masari, COINSHIFT is speeding up the coordination and efficiency of the organizations that use it. You have to keep up with the frontier, and COINSHIFT makes that easy. So sign up at coinshift.xyz/bankless. Do you buy NFTs? Do you like playing in the profile picture games or searching for underpriced rares? Or you're part of an NFT community and you want that sweet social experience that your NFT brings you? Of course you want these things. It's why you're listening to this podcast, and it's also why you should check out SINTRA. SINTRA is the most powerful and friendly all-in-one time saver for NFT investors. A new social-fi investment app with real-time sales, floor price tracking, Twitter mentions, and 700,000 wallets, all available to check out. All infused into a social experience to connect you with other like-minded NFT investors. In SINTRA, you can do your social media things like post, reply, share, ask questions, react, right next to where you showcase your beloved and cherished NFTs. And you also get a customizable feed of NFT activity, keeping you up to speed with the always changing meta of the NFT world. If you're not using SINTRA, you're falling behind. So go to sintra.com/bankless and connect your wallet to enter the world of SINTRA.
All right, Rolling Loud. Man, let's talk about this. So Rolling Loud, this year's festival just wrapped?
Yes, New York just ended a couple weeks ago.
New York just ended a couple of weeks ago. Talk to us about what you guys are doing with NFTs. You and I talked a bunch of months ago, and I was just excited because you're a team that seems to really get it and wants to do it right. Let's talk to us a little bit about it.
All right, largest hip hop festival in the world. Started in 2015, 2016-ish. Then we grew into doing our shows at Bayfront Park in Miami. If anyone's familiar, it's a city park. It holds about 40,000. And then we've progressed to doing it at Hard Rock Stadium. And now we're at 85,000 in Miami. We also have shows in New York, Portugal, Toronto, LA, Thailand got announced this year.
Wow. Sick.
And we have another one. We have another market being announced. I cannot drop that alpha here, but we have another international show being announced. So what we're doing on the Web3 side, we've done some smaller, kind of like POAP style things, but this is going to be our first major foray into Web3. The title of it is LoudPunx. The Punx character was something we had in 2016 or 2017. But when we launched it as a NFT, we obviously needed to add LoudPunx in front of it because as we all know who the OG punks are. And the big thing here is I think what got you excited is the utility. We're in a unique position as an event-based business with an already robust existing business to deliver massively on the utility side. Every LoudPunx is going to be admission into every single one of our festivals in perpetuity. So this is a lifetime global music festival pass. So you can go to, if you're on the East Coast, you can go to New York, Toronto, Miami, no problem. And if you're done and you're like, I had kids, I made $1 billion, I don't like hip hop anymore, whatever it may be, you're then able to go and sell it. I think a lot of Web2 companies, when they do these sort of lifetime passes or whatever it may be, they just kind of hope that people stop going and then it just dies and they collect that check and they're done. Whereas we really are trying to provide an opportunity to our diehard fans and just people who appreciate what we're doing to have a piece of this, like something that when they're done using it, they can still have value. Again, this is like the core of Web3 and digital ownership. And that's, what we're trying to get at here.
What is the goal for y'all? I'll lay out kind of two scenarios here, which is like, do you think this ultimately ends up being financially more beneficial for the organization than like having, and it's a relatively small mint size. What is it? Is it?
No, it's
how many of
10,000.
these? 10,000. Oh, 10,000 for unlimited access?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize, I thought, I guess I just forgot that. That's awesome. So is it financially more beneficial in your eyes because you think of the resales or whatever? Or is it about, capturing value, rewarding super fans? Like what's the hierarchy of goals with this?
I would say it's both of those components. Obviously there has to be financial compensation when giving out that much value, but mint price isn't released yet. But when people see the mint price, there's a huge value prop there. Like,
yep.
When you compare, like, just even if you compare these at like a GA level ticket, which they're not, there will be LoudPunx only lounges and there's going to be LoudPunx only events. And there's going to be much more than just the festival access. It would already be like $3,000 worth of value year over year. There's a deep component. We've always created subgenres within hip hop. Like there's drill rap, there's melodic rap, there's lyrical rap. Like people like Kendrick are more on the lyrical side. And then you have guys like Chief Keef on the more drill side. And again, I'm not an expert really on any of this, but we've always had subgenres, and now we're creating another subgenre in a way. And they're all going to be fans of hip hop, but these are going to be, as I think you'll see over more time, it'll become our diehard fans. There's still a lot of reluctance from Web 2 natives coming into Web 3. It's just, and as UI, UX gets better, I think you'll see the collection trend towards more of that. But right now, I think it's going to be Web 3 natives who like hip hop as well, but then people who just see like, this is going to explode next bull run. Like when more masses come on and they're like, what collection should I buy? What makes sense? Like, not to shit on storytelling NFTs, but like, I want to, like, what does this one do? It's like, oh, it's this really long story that, oh, you have to catch up on all this. You have to read this book. You have to do this. Like people are gonna be like, what the fuck is that? This is gonna be like, oh, this gets you into every Rolling Loud festival. And they're gonna be like, oh, like, yeah, like I'll take that one.
With then perks once you're there, to your point, this lounge, this, I think one of the things that confuses people who aren't in Web3 or you know, one of the criticisms is like, this doesn't do anything new, right? And effectively, you guys could have done something like this
without,
in theory, right? Without an NFT. And so people look at that, they're like, well, then why do it now? It must, if it wasn't being done before, there must not have been benefits, financial or otherwise, to doing it. What do you think about that?
I think this really allows, I mean, Web3 is about a decentralization of, I don't want to say of power, yeah, and of ownership. And I think this is like Tariq is a visionary. I mean, you don't create the largest hip hop music festival in the world without having a little bit of foresight and understanding where culture is going. And we want people to look at what we did and be like, oh, they got it and they got it early. This would have been more, I agree, more financially would have been more beneficial to do it through a scarcity model that just expired when you stopped using it, you know, because then we're like, okay, those people won't even come anymore. Like, perfect. But this is something that's going to live in perpetuity. Like this is a commitment to the technology, and this is a commitment to the fans.
And I think, let me know what you think about this. Like, to me, it feels like, yeah, in theory, you could have, I guess, issued, actually, let's like talk it through, right? Like, could you have issued some sort of QR code over email that allows access to all of the conferences? Like, is there really a way to do this like unlimited access thing?
Yeah, I think you just would have like, it would have been tied to an account.
Like a ticket master. Yeah, I guess it would have been like
Ticketmaster account, you know? Like you could have just tied it
in sort of a
to that.
And then you transfer it if the other person also has, I guess, a front gate account.
Or you would make it not, you would probably make it non-transferable. Like that was the Web 2 way. Like what do you mean transfer the life to like, no, you can't do that.
Right. And I guess that's like the point I'm trying to drive at is I feel like part of what's happened here and part of what maybe, again, the people who are like, well, what does this really do? You could have, in theory, done something like this before. We had the technological ways. Is that I think what Web3 is partly unlocking is just like psychological shifts in how brands think about delivering value. So even if you could have technologically maybe done this in the past, it would have been deeply less efficient. Like it's like awkward to picture that going down and awkward to picture about how you enforce that and don't end up with like, you know, fraud and all these other things, right? But B, there is this psychological shift that's taking place in how brands are thinking that will become the mainstream way of thinking in 5-10 years that has been unlocked because of this technology just making it easier to do what you're describing.
It unlocks,
and that shouldn't be discounted.
It unlocked digital ownership. And I think trying to explain digital ownership is a really difficult challenge because people can't even conceptualize what it is. They're like, okay, so you downloaded an MP3. It's like, you don't own that. Like you have like kind of like rights to listen to it in perpetuity. And then you go, okay, my Twitter account, like, no, you don't own, yeah, you can go sell that kind of, but there's not like this marketplace where you have global liquidity either, like operating through a currency that we can all use. It's like, it's a huge shift. You're not even asking people to be like, you now have just digital owners. Like they have to understand that something they've never even had before.
So when is this launching? When do these go on sale?
This technically isn't released, but we're doing a Spaces later day, which will then be yesterday, you know, for the people that are going to be November 9th is the target date.
Giving yourself room to be like, it's Web3, man.
Yeah, it's still weird. Fucking Web3. We're an accomplished Web2 events business. That doesn't mean we are experts in Web3. I don't think anyone is.
Totally. So, and you talked about this, right? You think the early buyers will probably be more Web3 native because that's mostly what, you know, who buys things these days because those are the people with wallets. Are you doing educational, like how are you marketing this out to Rolling Loud fans or you know, kind of explaining this to them? How are you guys thinking about that?
We're kind of repurposing some of the content with Gary because there's some snippets in there that make it more clear. And then if we can get him into the Discord, There's a lot of how-to information. We're sending out email blasts to some of our like multi-time attendees and VIPs. It's hard. There's a certain amount of curiosity required, even when you say lifetime pass, because even then you're trying to challenge, like when you're then owning an asset, there's a certain amount of like financial education needed as well to understand the value of ownership and not necessarily it being just a sunk cost or, for lack of a better word, a liability.
That you can resell this to somebody else who's young, who maybe has more of a lifetime to do it.
Into a global marketplace. That's like that's another huge piece. It's not just like, this isn't just through rollingloud.com you can sell it. Like you can sell this through global marketplaces. Like, Thailand show's coming up. People in Thailand are going to buy this. Oh, they don't like converting USDs. No. It's Ethereum. Like it's a big shift. And then also back onto our utility, we're having at scale meetups in Asia, Europe, and North America. This isn't just North America. No other collections are doing this yet.
And when you say large scale meetups, you mean at the Rolling Loud
the festival.
conference?
There will be
the point you're making at the festival.
There will be LoudPunx only lounges at select festivals early. We intend to do them at all. But like, for example, in Thailand, it's our first show. We aim to try and do it, but logistically it might be tough. So there's the intention to have LoudPunx at every show eventually. But for example, Thailand, it might be year 2 before we're like, okay, these are our events people. This is how we're going to do it.
Doing a lifetime pass is also a pretty bold statement and commitment on the festival's part to say this is going to be around forever. Like, does that at all scare your team? That like, what if like in 20 years, like what if Rolling Loud isn't, you don't want to do it anymore, or like, it's a really long-term commitment on your guys' part as well.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, it shows how we started in 2015 and now it's only 2022 and we're at 6 festivals and still expanding. I mean, Coachella and stuff, I think they're like 1999, like early 2000. So now they've been going, 30, I can't do that quick math or on the spot. So 22 years, some longer. Years, I mean, if you look at Ultra, we intend to be doing this forever. Obviously companies die and it would be like, what if a huge economic situation happened, everything like, well, then a lot of things are going away. But we created the world's largest hip hop music festival. Like we've already done something that people couldn't believe could be done. We're going to continue to do things that people believe can't be done. And this commitment to a lifetime pass is another one of them.
What excites me so much about it is I've talked a lot about NFT ticketing and what a just obvious opportunity that is to me. And I've always said, I think ticketing more than gaming, more than all of the other contenders for this title is probably the thing that makes this go mainstream, because when your Beyonce concert ticket, you're going to buy it. Even if you think you hate NFTs, like if you want to go to that concert, you're going to buy it if it's an NFT. And when somebody with y'all's platform does something like this, it warms the water for everyone, which is fantastic. It gets more people into the ecosystem, obviously, which is fantastic. But there's also just downstream tech effects, right? Like, what are you guys thinking about when it comes to admitting folks to the show and verifying those tokens? What does that look like?
We're gonna do the full day before. So the festival is Friday through Sunday. Thursday, there will be an offsite location, likely at a hotel, like ballroom, and we will verify token holders there we're in talks with a couple people. I'm sure you could guess at some of them.
A token proof kind of a thing.
I didn't say it.
I said
it. So we'll verify there. And then we'll also have that same mechanism in place at will call at the festival with their own specific will call. But realistically, you should do it the day before. Like you're just going to have a better experience because then you'll get your wristband there because we have wristbands with RFID like tags in them. Mm-hmm. And I can go way deeper on that as well. But this also gives us all right, let's be super optimistic. Say we end up at 60% unique ownership. Pretty optimistic looking at the rest of the spectrum. And how many people actually attend each festival? Super optimistically, 3,000. Like that would even be a massive turnout.
Yeah, 30% of all holders turn out for a show in one specific geography.
Like maybe Miami and New York are our biggest shows, and LA. We have a lot of people, but like Thailand, like come on, not that many people are going to make. I'm trying to make it out there, but it gives us an environment to test out a lot of our more aggressive Web3 objectives with a group of people in the early days who are more Web3 native and more accepting of some issues. Like we can't go roll out this tech if it's not ready with someone who's not native at all. They're going to be like, this is bullshit. I paid this much money. Whereas with Web3 natives, like we're just happy to see us pushing boundaries. And to have a core of people that's just excited, like, oh, it wasn't perfect, but like, look, we made it work. Like just that kind of energy is so valuable.
Also, we're so used to things breaking. Like every mint has a problem. Like, do you know what I mean? Like we're so used to imperfect experiences that it's not going to phase us at all if it's like, oh, there were some inconveniences associated with this. Like the fact that it's happening at all is cool to us because we're just so conditioned to be like, yeah, this tech is still kind of nascent. We're still figuring it out. But that sort of goes back to my original point with all of this, which is like, we need to be testing these things in a festival setting to ultimately get the right tech that's going to make it easy for this to become mainstream.
Yeah. And outside of LoudPunx, we have more Web 2.5 style objectives to bring people in through different means where there's less rub. I'm not an investor.
Friction.
Yeah. Shout out IYK. Here's the Bankless out hoodie.
I should have been wearing my IYK sweatshirt. I'm like, love Ryan O. Yang, one of the founders. Worked with him at my past startup I was at. I should have worn my GMI hoodie. Shout out IYK.
Yeah, I think bringing people in through merch is something that a lot of people are sleeping on.
Explain it for folks.
So
the merch and what IYK does.
It's an RFID tag and you're actually able to mint its polygons, so you don't have to pay anything. You can send it to a desktop. You can go to the wallet on your phone, or you can forego and not claim. And they're still able, with Verite, they're doing it. They're using the word beam, like content to it. So you can scan it and it'll bring you to a gated content, whether it's like, oh, it's a sneak peek to a music video, or hey, for Rolling Loud, like this is what the lineup's going to be just an hour before everyone else. And it's cool because you get to show love to like your diehards while also not necessarily having to create that much more content. You might just be giving them sneak peeks or early access to a merch drop, or there's so much.
So, and just for people who aren't physically watching this right now, he's got a GMI hoodie on. It's got this little like snowflake looking thing on the sleeve of the hoodie. And that doesn't look, if you're just looking at it, it doesn't look weird. It doesn't look there's something out of place, but there is a little tag in there that if you tap your phone to that little snowflake, it'll mint an NFT for you. Or as he's describing, like can pull up a web page on your phone that could give you a sneak preview of a video.
Yeah, and maybe in the beginning, it's like you're just giving them sneak peeks, and then down the road, you're like, okay, you're gonna need to mint. Or you don't even use the word mint. You're gonna need to claim the digital whatever we are calling it at that point. And then you bring them into having a wallet. And it's kind of like, I don't want to be like sneaky about it, but it's like kind of a Trojan horse.
Totally. We are trying to Trojan horse people into Web3, and I don't feel manipulated for saying that. Like I fully support it.
This is good for you. You just don't know it yet.
Yes. No, we're doing this for you.
Yeah, we're parents of like the entire global population, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I think it's super exciting. It's what we need to be happening. I think, you have the right audience to be doing it with, in the sense that, like, I don't know, I guess I think of like hip hop culture as being cutting edge, as being like culture drivers in a lot of ways. And so having an audience of like the people who are, diehard fans of culture driving feels like a no-brainer audience to ultimately adopt Web3 early as well.
Hip hop drives global culture as well. Like the US isn't cool because we have massive portions of food, or like our legislation is driven by corporations, or a lot of those other things that are wrong. It's cool because of hip hop.
Yeah, 100%.
It drives fashion, it drives music, it leaks in. It's hip hop in Hollywood, but those two intermix quite a bit. We are one of, if not the most culturally significant events companies in the entire world. And I fully mean that and believe that.
What has the reception been?
like the people who comment on Twitter, not good. But in the Discord, you have the people who are really interested come in and be like, how's a wallet work? Like, where do I buy Ethereum? So the people who are negative, I mean, I think this is our culture in general. The people who are the loudest and the most negative are very boisterous on the socials, but the people
They're bots.
kick them off. Bots. Anyone who criticizes us,
Anybody who says something mean about me is a bot.
100%. But there's a lot coming into the disc, and I love it. Like, it's interesting that a lot of these first time people's NFTs will be a high value NFT.
The first NFT I bought was a VFriend, and it like promptly like, you know, whatever, like went up in price, and I was like, I think I'm gonna like it here. You know, like I'm gonna stay in this community for a long time. You know, like that's great. Like, you know, it's the problem is like the people we lose are the people who bought into some scam project that like, or just a project that went down in value or whatever.
bought
like,
the
that's
top.
like a fast way to lose people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but totally. I think it's fantastic. That's awesome. So, and are you guys? It's based on what you just said. Like, it is an Ethereum. It's an Ethereum
Yes.
mint. Are you
No.
looking at?
We're only
You're
accepting
preempting my
Ethereum.
question. You're only accepting Ethereum. That's bold.
This is a commitment to Web3.
Bold as hell.
This is the real deal. I saw what Coachella
Wow.
did. They did it with Solana through an FT. I love Coachella, don't get me wrong. They did it through Solana
Yeah.
on an FTX marketplace. They did it for a crazy high value, released a really small amount. I don't agree with how that was done. Lyrical Lemonade, I think, has done a great job, but it's only 3 years and it's only one festival. We're lifetime. We're 6+ festivals. We're still fucking growing.
10,000, and it's 10,000.
10,000. You think we have
It's amazing.
85,000 in Miami? Depending on shoes, we also have more cushion for more people. We don't fully, like, we don't sell to our top capacity. So we have a lot of wiggle room.
It's so cool. I'm really excited. Has the press reacted at this point?
I think you're going to start to see it a lot more. We've kind of been like quietly doing our thing while festival season closed up because we don't have our next festival until March, LA, at a new location. So now the teams we're really like getting on it. I think a lot of stuff gets covered up by when our festivals are going. So I think you're going to start to see a lot more. I also want to address the 10K in this environment because I know there's going to be pushback on it. We don't want to release... We want to release a collection that fits the size of our brand for the future. We don't want to release something that only fits right now. We are building for the long term. And I don't want to release it in stages so then your early investors are getting fucked. So we're doing a 10K and we're doing it now.
And to make explicit what I think you're saying is like the NFT buying community is small right now. So 10K feels like a lot to people because there aren't really 10,000 plus people that are like actively buying into projects, or there probably are, right? But they're not interested in different things, right? So like you would need whatever, 1 million people to be actively buying NFTs for there to be 10,000 individuals who want to go into one project, right? And we're not there yet, but your point is we're going to be there. And so if we're building this for a lifetime, we're building this for the next 100 years, we believe so strongly in Web3 and that this is the future, that there will be 1 million, and we believe in our festival, that there will be 1 million people, buying NFTs, buying these digital assets. There'll be way more than that, right? And there'll be, hundreds of thousands of people trying to go to Rolling Loud festivals. And I'm sure this will also be a status symbol. And I'm sure, you're going to, the lounge, the LoudPunx lounge at these festivals would be dope. So if you're a Rolling Loud person, you go to the festival and you see all the people in that sick lounge.
Oh, we're going to drive FOMO. Don't worry.
Damn it. I want to be there. I want to be in that lounge. So even if you're not in it because you can go to 6 shows a year for the rest of your life, but you're rich enough that you're like, well, hell, I can't not be in the lounge that looks sick. So that's what you mean when you say like, we're making this commitment for the long term. It's that like, it's this belief that there are going to be just millions of people who are engaging in these kind of assets.
When people make these questions, and not just our collection, which I'm sure will get questioned, but other ones, it's like they don't understand. Like, you don't build for the bear market. Like, you build for the future.
You don't build for the like couple of people here who are weird. And, because we're here early.
I'm happy I built for 10 salty people. Like. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm so thrilled. I built for these 10 people that are screaming at me on Discord, which itself is a platform that I like, that's like weird and I can't freaking use. And yeah. Smart. What did the liquid lemonade?
Lyrical Lemonade.
Cool.
With Cole
Lyrical
Bennett,
Lemonade.
super talented. Produces a lot of music videos, does his own festival in Chicago.
What do they do? Did you spell out what they did?
Yeah, so they did, I think
liked?
they did a 1,000 collection, and it's not a PFP.
Okay.
It's a carton of lemonade. They just actually there was like art that changed. Re-release of art's fantastic. But it was kind of like V-Friends, like it was a 3-year pass.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
I think,
Oh, you did spell that
I
out.
think
Sorry,
Generation
make me
1
read that.
like this is speculation. I think that's going to continue to be a longer pass. I think they were just kind of like testing the event planning waters, and then they're like, okay, we'll see.
Yeah, I think so too. The caveat I'd give there is like Gary has obviously talked a lot about how this is he's trying to build this multimedia brand effectively. He wants to be Disney. And I think, the conference was something he's openly said. He kind of tacked onto it so that people could do the immediate calculation, which for what it's worth is what I did, right? When I was buying my floor mint, the lowest mintable, he did all these tiers, right? I did like the base mint for like half an ETH. And ETH was actually expensive at that point. It was like 4K or whatever. Like I was doing the math of like, okay, a multi-day conference, these can go for thousands of dollars, tickets to these multi-day conferences. So a ticket to a multi-day conference, 3 of those tickets is probably worth more than the $2,000 because I was still in fiat, I was still in early days. So I did that math and I was like, all right, that's worth it. And I think that's why he did it. He tacked that on to show people. And so he might continue it because it's
I think so. Now we got a taste.
But I do think it was like.
Now we got a taste of the events business, and there's back to building culture. Building culture through IRL experience is something else. And that's also why I'm super bullish on LoudPunx. Not only are you meeting up with people in real life, you're meeting up with people at a festival, which for a lot of people is a peak experience. It's not like 10 awkward crypto dudes walk into a quiet bar. Like
shots fired.
I was there. I was one of the awkward people. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But like you have the ambiance and the energy of a festival to like create these deep relations. I'm just so fucking excited. Like let's get fucking minted. Yeah. Like I can't wait for people to see all the other stuff. We're gonna surprise people. People think we're just gonna party. There's a lot coming.
When do we know the mint price? Because like you've got me hyped, right? Like I'm like, yeah, I get it. It's cool.
Mint price will be released within the next 2 weeks. Again, Tarek, a visionary, but also will go rogue and might announce it while we're talking right now.
God, I know that world so well. I worked for Andrew Yang for 2 years and I love it. And it was a presidential campaign, and I love Andrew. And what people loved about him was that he was not like a traditional, like leashed, trained politician, But it did mean there were things that like normal politicians would like not do, like just like say something on CNN or like announce a policy on like, because he's like talking to some dude in the press and he's like, oh, that sounds good. And you're like, the whole team's like, oh my God, what? Like now we
are an unleashed brand. That is for sure.
Yeah. Anyways, I love it. Well, dude, Ronald, thank you so much for coming on, talking about this. We'll kind of track this closely. Love to have you back on as we see how it unfolds. I think you guys are obviously leading the charge in a lot of ways, in my opinion, on this for like the live event space, and just really excited for I think what it will inspire in, call it, other projects, other festivals, other live events companies.
I am genuinely so grateful for you having me on and us as Rolling Loud as a brand. Like, thank you so much. And we'd love to come back on whenever you invite us. Love it. Well, thank you, Ronald. And thanks to all the listeners for hearing us out. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.